When it comes to practicing Hanon on the piano, most piano players are making some huge mistakes that actually make practicing Hanon on the piano a big waste of time. Now, if you dive into this tutorial and you take these 5 things that I'm going to share with you and you actually apply them to your Hanon piano practice, not only will your technique improve, you're also going to sound a lot more musical. The things that we're going to go over in this video are going to get progressively more mind-blowing as the video goes on, so make sure that you stay tuned to the end of the video where I'm also going to give you a 6th additional bonus tip. I'm also going to be making a very time-sensitive announcement at the end of the video, so you don't want to miss that. Let's dive in. The first thing that you need to know in order to practice Hanon on the piano is that Hanon will not inherently make your technique better. And I want you to let that one sink in, because one of the biggest misconceptions about practicing Hanon or Czerny or any of the technical exercises on the piano is that by simply showing up and practicing them or playing the notes, your technique will improve. But this is not true. And in fact, you actually have to have a very solid understanding of the proper technique required to play Hanon in order to get any sort of benefit from practicing the Hanon exercises. I'm gonna go a little bit more into detail on this in the future points in this video, but for starters, you wanna make sure that your piano posture is correct. And I talk about this in a lot of videos because 97% of adult piano players are doing this totally wrong when I watch them play for the very first time. You wanna make sure that you're sitting at the proper height and that you're also sitting at the proper distance from the piano. So this means you want your arms to be making a 90-degree angle. So ideally, my height allows for this part of my arm to be parallel to the ground. If I'm sitting too high, you're gonna have a funky angle like this. And if you're sitting too low, you're gonna have a funky angle like this. Proper piano technique is all about the weight of your arms being able to drop into every single key. If you're not sitting at the correct height, you will not be able to use the weight of your arms, and anything that you try to play is going to sound a little bit forced and not as free and fluid as it could. You also want to make sure that you're at the proper distance from the keys. So you don't want to be too close and you don't want to be too far away. And I would say the number one mistake that I see people making with this point is that they're sitting too far away or they're actually leaning back a little bit. You want to be at a distance where your arms are parallel to your torso and your fingers rest on the edge of the keys. You can actually lean over the keys a little bit, and that's a great posture to play Hanon from, but make sure you're not leaning back. The second thing that you need to know in order to practice Hanon on the piano is do not rely on your fingers by themselves. Keep your fingers glued to the keys as much as possible. Keep your fingers on the edge of the keys and utilize the motion of your wrist and your arm to move you up and down the keyboard. This is another one of those huge mistakes that I would say most piano players make when I watch them practice Hanon. You do not want every finger to be leaving the keys. And in fact, your fingers need to be glued to the keys. So let me show you what I mean. So most people will practice Hanon and they will have each finger working independently from the other one, and this is wrong. It looks like this. Playing like that, I have to take the time and the energy and the effort to make sure that every single finger is placed on the correct key. This is never going to allow me to play with any sort of speed or fluidity or freedom. This is going to keep me really slow, and it's going to keep things sounding very, very mechanical. But if I keep my fingers rounded on the edge of the keys and I simply allow the weight of my arms to drop into each key, watch what happens. My fingers individually that were moving, I actually had some weight coming into my arms and they were swinging side to side. My wrists were very flexible, and this was helping me get to the position that I want to get to in order to play these exercises smoothly. It was also helping bring my pinky around, because one of the biggest problems in Hanon is, of course, the independence of the fingers and getting the pinky and the 4th finger to sound even and to play them without like the sound dropping out or slamming out. And when I move my wrist and my elbow to the right, I'm helping my right hand support the pinky and the 4th finger. When I swing them back to the left, I'm helping my left hand support my fourth finger and my fifth finger, which are the weakest fingers that cause the most trouble. So if your fingers are glued to the keys, this motion will eventually feel very natural after you practice it. However, if your fingers are lifting up after every note that you play, it's never going to feel very natural, and it's always going to feel very awkward and slow and mechanical. The third thing that you need to know in order to practice Hanon on the piano is that speed is the byproduct of accuracy. And speed is not the goal. Let that one sink in as well, because this is one that people mess up all the time. We see videos of people practicing Hanon and they're just like reading a book and their fingers are flying off the keys, going so fast, but speed is not the goal, right? The only way that they got to the point that they could play it with that much freedom and fluidity and speed was that they originally practiced slowly. They let the information sink into their fingers, into their muscle memory. They gave their brain the space to understand the exercise, and after a lot of accurate practice, the speed naturally comes. Especially when we're talking about adjusting your technique and making sure that your fingers stay glued to the keys, you're going to need to do that very slowly. If you try to take these 5 things and do them all at once and do them quickly, you will not succeed. But if you do it one step at a time and you allow yourself to play very slowly, I'm talking like slow like a sloth here, then you will find that you're able to make that progress. If you're enjoying this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on any of the helpful tutorials that I release, and also share this video with some other adult piano players so that their Hanon exercises can also sound as incredible as yours. The fourth thing you need to know in order to practice Hanon on the piano is that you want to make sure that your hands are in sync. Oftentimes when people go about practicing these exercises, the hands get really apart. And so it's like you'll hear either the right hand play first and then the left hand, or vice versa, and it sounds very disjointed and very disorganized. And you want to make sure that you're practicing slowly enough, like I said in my last point, that you can get both hands to play at the same time. A really great way that you can think about this, it actually is a little bit counterintuitive, but I don't want you to think about playing both notes at the same time, because as soon as you do that, your brain almost gets really confused and it's like you can't do it. But if you think about one hand leading the other hand, that usually results in both hands playing at the same time. So because my right hand is a little bit stronger, I will often think about my right hand leading my left hand, and I'll tell my left hand to copy the right hand, and that will often give it a little boost to ensure that they're playing at the same time. Let me show you what I mean. So when you think, play together, oftentimes you hear this. Each of the notes coming down at different times, and so it sounds super messy. So I'm going to let my right hand lead and I'm going to let my left hand follow, and you can listen that they become a lot more in sync. The fifth thing you need to know about playing Hanon on the piano is play them musically. Right? These are technical exercises. They are not the most interesting. They don't have a lot of dynamics written in the score. There's not a lot of articulations written in the score, but you can make them musical. And if you think about the highest goal of piano playing, and this is true for me all the time in anything that I do with adult piano players, the highest goal is musicality. Right? And any tutorial that I make, the purpose of it is to help you eventually be able to play musical, if you can't right now. Anytime I'm in a group class in Casual to Confident Piano Player, whatever I'm asking people to do, the highest goal is musicality. And oftentimes that involves doing like really tactical things, like taking these 5 tips and applying them so that you can create space in your brain to focus on musicality. But technical exercises are wonderful because after you repeat them enough times, they get into your muscle memory pretty quickly if you're doing it correctly and you're practicing them slowly. And so your brain does have a little more space to focus on musicality. So once you finish an exercise and you're like, okay, this is great. My fingers are playing at the right time. I have the right technique. I'm not making a lot of mistakes. I feel like I'm ready to go on to the next exercise. Don't. Take that exercise and spend a little more time with it. Add a bunch of dramatic dynamics to it. Add some different articulations to it. Practice it legato, practice it staccato, practice it with 2-note slurs, and see how many different layers of musicality you can infuse into the exercise. You're going to get a lot more out of every single technical exercise if you focus on actually making it musical. This is a great practical skill that translates very well to anything you're doing on the piano. Because if you're playing a piece and there's like an awkward transition section and you're not sure how to make it musical, But over here on the sidelines, you've been taking these arguably boring exercises and making them sound very beautiful and musical. You're flexing that muscle of making awkward, boring things sound musical. And so you're gonna be able to do that in the pieces that you're playing way easier. Right, let's talk about your bonus tip. The bonus tip is that you're not going to skip the turnaround. This is so important, and so many people skip the turnaround, and so it's like you play the exercise going up the piano, and then you get to that really tricky turnaround, and you're just kind of like, oh, whoops, I just played all wrong notes. Oh well, now I'm going back down. And people ignore that part of the exercise, but it's actually one of the most important parts. It's one of the parts that gives your brain a chance to really focus in a different way. And the reason I don't want you to skip the transitions in the Hanon exercises is that if we think about the concept that the exercises are to help you with your playing in your other pieces, most often people mess up the transitions of pieces of music as well. And so I just want you to get in the habit of focusing on the transitions, giving them a little bit of extra attention. And I'm going to give you a really great tip on how to do that here in a second, but I want to make sure you stay tuned to the very end because I also have that time-sensitive announcement coming up. So when you're working on the transitions, a great way to practice is to actually take the notes of the individual exercise and block them together as a chord. Now this won't work for every single exercise, but it's going to work for a lot of them. And so what you would do is, like, looking at the first measure of this Hanon exercise, we would take those notes, and instead of playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 separate notes, we would actually play them all at the same time. And so let me show you what I mean. We're not going to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to play, and then we're going to go to the next measure, and then the next measure, and then the next measure. And I'm not promising you that it's going to sound good, but what it does is it gets the notes into your muscle memory a lot faster. It also helps you move away from thinking about individual notes, because ultimately the Hanon exercises are very much patterned, right? And so the faster that you can commit that pattern to not only your cognitive memory up here in your brain, but also your muscle memory down here in your fingers, the easier it's going to be. So if you practice blocking all of the notes together, when you get to the transition, it gives you a chance to really jumpstart what the exact notes are in the transition and how that little turnaround feels. So let me show you what I mean. In this exercise, the transition happens up on, I play B, and then I come back down. And at this point, the pattern also reverses. And so all of a sudden, my muscle memory has to remember what the spacing between the notes is. And if you practice blocking the notes of that transition, you are going to have a much better handle on the spacing of the notes and how it feels in your hands. All right, let's talk about this time-sensitive announcement. So, Piano Practice Lab is starting tomorrow. If you haven't heard of Piano Practice Lab, you are going to want to tune into this. Piano Practice Lab is a free 4-day event where I meet with you every single day in Zoom, and we design a weekly practice routine for you that accelerates your progress consistently and moves you beyond the notes to that higher level musical expression. Piano Practice Lab is an awesome event and people rave about it. People get so many free takeaways from this event. We're starting tomorrow. If you want to join us, you can use the link in the description below. There's also replays available. So even if you can't make the live class, I would highly recommend that you register anyway, and that way you'll get replays delivered straight to your inbox. And if you're not already in my free Facebook community, get your booty over there. We are doing amazing things. Piano Practice Lab is also going to be broadcast into that Facebook community. I release content in that community that's not here on the YouTube channel. So use the link in the description and see me over there. I can't wait to get to know you more. Now, if you want some more information on how to practice the technical applications of like proper piano posture and technique and things like that that I talked about in the video, I'm going to go ahead and link on the end screen to a live stream that's going to be really helpful where I go very in depth about proper piano technique. You can check that out.